I'll move to the last question, Venkat. You spoke about other countries beyond the US, China, and perhaps even EU. I wanted to understand the implications for India, given the fact that we might need to play the game a little differently now. What's your sense?
Uh, Let me be very frank, IG. I have not followed very closely. I've not done much of research on, what are India's capabilities. What are the kind of investments, that we are making. So I would like to qualify with whatever I'm going to say with, with this thing that please take it with a pinch of salt. These are my limited kind of inferences that I have
Okay.
drawn on the basis of whatever one is looking at from the Sino-US tech war point of view. So the first thing is, given that we also feel that India is a country which has power ambitions, and with two major countries like China and US in this tug of war, directly or indirectly, it is bound to impact us. So the first thing that we need to understand is how we can ensure that we are not getting drawn into this kind of a tug of war, and we should be in a position to pick and choose for our national security considerations where we should be pitching, what should we be pitching. And that means preparing for a certain kind of a tech self-reliance. Now, the Chinese model has been the state capitalist model. The Americans has been predominantly market capitalist model, but the Americans have been compelled by this Chinese, tech march to revisit their model of market capitalism or minimum state intervention, at least in the tech domain. The state has come pretty big in a very short span of time. So I think we also, given the national security implications, uh, the, the central government in India needs to, cobble coalitions within the country and think of developing public-private partnerships, whereby the advanced educational institutions specializing in the tech domain, they should be roped in. Some of the private companies which are having high tech prowess, they should be roped in. And this kind of public private partnerships will not only help bring new sources of funding for R&D, but it will also I think a more public discourse awareness will is also very, very relevant to understand that whatever is happening between China and US is not between them, but it has serious implications for our country's interest.
I hear you,
So
Venkat. One thing that I wanted to just clarify there was really the new agreements that have come up, especially the Quad and
yeah,
the whole open, free and open Indo-Pacific
right.
uh, treaties. What does that really entail, and does that change the game in any significant way for India?
Uh, Yeah, so India being a member of Quad, so say for example, when China threatened the world with restricting the scope of rare earth elements, for example,
Hmm.
Quad said that we are going to come together and look for funds whereby we will see how new sources of rare earth elements can be, explored and uncovered, etc. That is one. So similarly, in this particular domain of tech, I mean, rare earth element is also now part of this whole tech debate. uh, how the if the military alliance, the Quad is a kind of a military alliance, in the offing. uh, what is it that India brings to the table when it wants to make its voice, when it wants to make its voice heard in a loud way by the other Quad members? We are in a world which is increasingly realistic, nationalistic. There is tremendous amount of what I would say. It was always like that, but more so in the recent times. What are we? In what kind of a position India is in when it comes to a certain kind of a quid pro quo?
Got
What
it.
if others are going to support India, then India also has to give back something. So what is it that we are going to give back? That is very, very important. So
Fair point.
if India has to enhance its voice, influence at a global level, we need to prepare ourselves with a certain amount of ammo, which will help us convince others. And with India, taking up the G20 leadership, it will be interesting to see, what kind of leadership we will be able to provide. And increasingly, its leadership, we can gauge from India's leadership there that how does it seek to participate in many of these forums like Quad, even the free and open Indo-Pacific, which China feels is kind of a democratic alliance against an authoritarian China. Or how does India basically, what value it brings to the table? And the sooner it starts thinking of, because tech and energy, climate change, these are going to be two of the most important pillars on the basis of which the so-called democratic world and authoritarian world will engage in when it comes to gaining international currency across the international community. So
Thank you.
India needs
Yeah.
to, invest in technology. That's what I can say at this point of time.
Sure, sure. And I hear you. I mean, you've kind of offered a fairly lucid sense of what this could, how this could play out, both between US and China, this tech war. It's almost, it looks like a new chapter in that whole saga, something that you've been covering very closely and you've written for us in the past. Thank you so much. I think there are implications clearly for India that we also need to take into consideration. So thank you for sharing your perspective. But this promises to be a fairly, we're almost on the verge of uh, end of this year. So what the new year brings will be interesting to certainly watch out for. Thanks so much.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks a lot, IG. Thanks a lot. It's always fun to have these conversations with the Founding Fuel team. And thanks a lot for yet another opportunity.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.